We're not superstitious people. I kind of jinxed us yesterday, and I knew I shouldn't have said anything. But when it comes to sailing, there are a few things we avoid doing and saying. In this particular scenario, it was just as I was reveling in how fantastic Nakama's performance had been lately when things instantly began to unravel.
We are on the wild west coast. Unfortunately, a couple of hours ago now we lost our engine,
Forcing us offshore into unfavourable conditions. These are moments that are truly testing. We're reminded that we're a mere speck in the ocean's relentless turmoil. And despite the chaos aboard our vessel, we're just struggling to make ground. We must keep pushing through. Honestly, last night couldn't have gone worse. But our worst sail continued to evolve. Your mum's gonna kill you.
Sorry, Mum.
As we're coming through the entrance, the wind has completely died off.
Oh, I disagree, it could have gone worse. It was definitely a shit show, but I think we handled a shit show of events quite well, to be honest.
If you're new here, we're Slim and Soph, and we're currently sailing our vessel Nakama around Australia while we're completing our degrees online. It probably doesn't look like it to you guys, but we do actually do uni. We do attend lectures and we do get our assessments in on time. Woo! Yeah. Last time we left you here, on the west coast of Australia, battling an early change in the seasons as we race to get south before conditions deteriorate further. We need to get going and keep pushing south. We've left the small coral lagoon of Tantabiddi Bay and are underway on what we anticipate will be a 30 nautical mile day hop to the next accessible anchorage along the Ningaloo Reef. At the moment we're not making any kind of forward ground. We're just sort of trying to get ourselves an angle again so we can actually point south. Basically, there's a time of year to head south on this west coast before the seasonal southerlies kick in and make life difficult. We've been trying to make consistent ground to avoid the worst of this, but following a delayed departure from Darwin,
Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
having a little bit too much fun in the Kimberley, and only being able to go as quickly as we can with uni commitments has created a concoction of events that, with an earlier than expected change of season, means the dreaded southerly winds are our new reality. But we have to keep pressing on because there's another window of opportunity about to close, and that's our chance to cross the Great Australian Bight.
Oh, it's just been back to back, non-stop. Doesn't stop aboard Nakama. It's like uni till it's time to cook dinner, till it's time to sleep, because you gotta wake up, because it's time to sail. And it's just been like that for ages. I'm not whinging, it's good. Wouldn't have it any other way, but it has been hectic. Especially when it's like the clock's ticking because the wind's already changed on us, but it's only going to get stronger and stronger. So,
however, spirits are still high and hopeful at this point, and we're super grateful to have a boat that doesn't mind sailing to windward. Headpiece you've got on, Slim.
yes. Soph said she wanted a headband. She was whinging, believe it or not. Soph actually whinges sometimes. That her hair kept going in her face, and I said, well, you got to try this. You put the leg of your boxers. I first discovered this when I needed a sleep gluffin, like an eye gluffin for sleeping. But also, if it's really windy and your hair's blowing in your face, it's good, versatile. Roll it up, good sun protection at the back, and you can use it as a sleeping thing. Like if you're on public transport, just like want to have a little sleep, take your underwear off, whack it on your head, good to go. They're clean undies, by the way, guys. You don't wear underwear out here anyway, so it's like, may as well use them for something.
So we've done about 7 tacks today. We're on our final tack. We're actually making our course, which is really great, and we only have about 5 miles to go. So we're on the home stretch. Hopefully that was our last tack. Pretty keen to get in and get out of this wind, I guess, and stop tacking. As we approach the gap in the reef that will allow us a safe harbour for the night, anticipation builds.
Woo! It's officially the Wild West Coast now. The further south we've pushed today, the swell's definitely increasing. We thought we had our last tack just before, now it is coming back offshore again. Going to try and get around some shallower water that we just don't want to see what these waves are doing in the shallow patch, to be honest. Whoa! And then we'll tack back in, hopefully through an entrance in the reef.
The challenging thing about this extensive reef-fringed coastline is there are very few spots where you can seek shelter as huge waves roll unimpeded from Africa across the Indian Ocean and break onto the reef. And with today's bigger than expected swell, it appears the reef pass we intended to take into the anchorage is unpassable due to breaking waves. I look like a fisherman in Simon's beanie. But yeah, we decided we approached, these waves are getting big. We approached that little entrance through the reef. We weren't feeling that great about it. I think we've just made the decision to keep pushing on another 50 miles. The next place looks like a better entrance than that one was, so that's our decision at the moment. Sometimes with being on the water, you have an instinct to not push something. For us, the risk versus reward ratio for this anchorage was out. So, although we're heading back offshore, we know we're not at risk of hitting any reef or coming across breaking waves.
The only other little entrance through this reef, which is another 20 miles from here, I think is a little bit tighter. And we'd still be getting there on like dusk, so we're not even going to bother really checking it out. I think our best bet is to just tack out offshore, find a better line and get Nakama ready for the night time.
So we've decided to continue pressing on to Coral Bay, which is another 50 miles from here, and being about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we predict at this stage we'll get in sometime during the evening.
It's not what we anticipated doing today, but such is the way. The Wild West Coast.
Sometimes when you're forced to continue sailing when you didn't plan on it can be a bit mind-rattling. But this last-minute decision to go through the night was taken pretty calmly, as we're feeling confident not only in Nakama at the moment, but our own sailing ability, which is when you can be humbled the most.
Alright, we are on the Wild West Coast. Unfortunately, a couple of hours ago now we lost our engine.
We had the engine roaring with life to assist us in approaching the reef pass, then to get back offshore and set Nakama back up. During this time, the engine uncharacteristically came to a halt. This is when being a sailboat is great, but it's not ideal, as without an engine will make getting into these reef anchorages even trickier and potentially even too dangerous to attempt.
I think we're going to try and heave to real quick. We've just come offshore.
We're now feeling incredibly grateful we trusted our instincts and made the call not to go through that pass. We weren't feeling that great about it. I think we've just made the decision to keep pushing on. As with the timing of the engine cutting out, we most likely would have lost it as we were halfway through it, leaving us to negotiate coral bommies under sail.
I've done all the engine checks I can, but the conditions are just too much. I can't do anything more at this stage. I think we're going to need a heave to and calm ourselves down a bit, and I can do a little bit more detailed checks.
We've now put a few miles between us and the reef, where we can safely heave to and see if we can amend the situation. Heaving to is like pulling over. You turn the boat through the wind until the headsail is backwinded, and then you turn your rudder back towards the wind, so the boat basically comes to a stop. Gotta say, it's quite pleasant heaving to. We're just chilling. We're only doing 1 knot. Yeah, it gives us a chance to breathe for a sec. It's nice. Heaving to is most commonly used for heavy weather scenarios. But for us today, it's allowed us to roughly diagnose why the engine's not working.
So the fuel lines, I just changed the fuel filters and they're instantly dirty again. We've got bad fuel. We've got an electric lift pump, we've got a manual lift pump too. I squeezed that a couple times, it dislodged some gunk, and now the new fuel filter, where was I? New fuel filter's covered in shit. Even the manual pump, like what you'd have in a tinny, I've pumped it and now it just won't inflate again, like it's full of shit. I don't think we're going to be able to resolve that out here. While we are stopped, we're still floating slowly back towards the reef, so I think that's an anchorage job.
We've most recently been in some crazy remote areas, getting fuel in incredibly unique ways. Just Slim and a whole bunch of Jerrys running off into the sunset. 4-wheel driving through the outback to a fuel bowser in the middle of nowhere.
One of the most fun, expensive fuel runs I've ever done in my life.
Or pulling Nakama alongside a fuel barge amongst the red cliffs of the Kimberley. This is probably the coolest fuel wharf I've ever seen. We're not surprised we've gotten a fuel bug, especially in the hot and humid weather of North Australia. We can only think that this bashing must have churned up the monster in our tanks, and it's finally come out to play. That is gnarly, babe. That's meant to be clear there. The positive is that it's only diesel sludge clogging up our lines, not a major engine part that's failed on us, which means we feel good about continuing on to our next intended anchorage. We think that what's going on, we can at least fix it ourselves, and we've made a final decision, I believe, if nothing else goes wrong, that we're going to continue on to Coral Bay. We should be able to sail into that bay quite easily. There's a big open entrance.
I'm so glad we didn't attempt that sus entrance we were sus on and then have this cut out then, because it was cut out not much after we decided not to go in there. So whew, I'm glad the engine, yeah, I'm grateful for where it broke down on us, if that makes sense.
As the sun disappears from this chaotic day, the bedlam doesn't stop. We're exhausted at this point from the constant tacking into the wind, and the very few miles we're making in the right direction is starting to get to us. These are moments that are truly testing. We're just struggling to make ground. We've made about 6 miles in the last 4 hours, I'd say. It's really, really defeating. We're just trying to get around this corner of Norwegian Bay and we're just struggling to get around. Yeah, it's testing, very testing. Through the night, the swell continued to build, and we realised just how unprepared we were for this night sail.
It's pretty wet outside. You guys are going away for the night. We're suiting up for the night. Wet, wild and windy, and on Nakama at the moment.
Beating into the wind is like hitting your head against a brick wall. The bow is submarining through the waves, and the anchor, even with a securing line, finally jumps high enough to dislodge and crash into Nakama's bow. Water is gushing across our decks, causing our leeward jerrys to drag over the side. And when our autopilot gives way, our hands are needed in the cockpit. Exhausted, we take it in turns to steer through the night, sleeping in the cockpit in between. Thankfully, by morning, the conditions had settled.
Any comments, Nate?
that was probably up there with one of the worst nights we've had aboard Nakama.
That was pretty brutal, trying to like tack, but then keep offshore enough of the reef in case the wind did drop out or decided to do anything weird to us. And then the autopilot decided to die too, just to throw it in the mix. Yeah, we didn't get much sleep. Me and Soph were taking it in turns. Like, still, like, obviously the conditions they've changed now, but they hadn't last night. So it was like still 25 knots or whatever. I don't know how many meters swell, and like, yeah, hand steering, trying to like figure out how to fix it. But everything, it's just like the conditions were too gnarly out there to do any fixing or troubleshooting. So it was like me and Soph were taking like 20 minutes to half an hour watches while the other one slept in the cockpit doing the hand steering. It was, yeah, interesting night. I don't know if that was focused, but we're not there yet. We've done 40 of the longest 50 miles of our lives.
We literally set off, or decided to do this last 50 miles at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon with the maths of about doing 5 knots. That means we should have been in. When should we have been in?
Midnight.
So yeah, we should have been in at around midnight last night. It's like almost 7 o'clock this morning and we're still about 10 miles off, and I reckon it's going to be in the end about 20 miles by the time we actually get in and anchor. We just still got the wind right where we want to go, and we're just tacking backwards and forwards, making only very, very slow forward progress. I kind of jinxed us yesterday, and I knew I shouldn't have said anything, but I was like, Nakama's just like seeming like such a good boat at the moment. Nothing's broken, like nothing has been breaking for such a long time. And then next minute, like the engine dies, the autopilot dies, we had the anchor like dislodge. I don't know what chips we've got on the bow. That will be interesting to look at. Should I keep going? Yeah. We got these jerry cans in the cockpit because, oh, you're gonna tell us told you so, but yeah, the jerry cans on the decks were just like literally flying everywhere. At one stage we had a jerry can like in the water and we're like trying to get it out of the water. We managed to save it and it was just a nightmare. Honestly, last night couldn't have gone worse. It was just like a series of events that were just like one after the other, just like a show. Would you agree?
Oh, I disagree, it could have gone worse. It was definitely a shit show, but I think we handled a shit show of events quite well, to be honest. It was out of our hands. It was out of Nakama's hands. I mean, other than the autopilot, that's Otto, he's got a mind of his own, and the engine wasn't Nakama's fault because the fuel was dirty. So, no flaws on Nakama. We pretty much put her through being a submarine last night. Some of the other things, so was like so there was a few drips coming through, but I'm like, I don't know, she's not a submarine, she's a sailing boat, so yeah, it was like Soap said, it was one thing after the other. It'd be like, whoa, jerry can in the water, grab that. Holy crap, the anchor is just like smashing holes in our bow. Hopefully it doesn't.
So our microphones over time get salt corrosion and let us know when it's time for a replacement with this horrible crackling and popping. There's probably no better time to say that if you are enjoying our videos, becoming a patron really helps us with keeping up with replacing our camera gear that's constantly exposed to the elements.
Oh, I got the camera. Damn it.
You'll also receive perks of knowing our real-time whereabouts as well as opportunities for in-person meetups. The wind is easing, so we try to do the best we can with the wind we have, floating up mountains of swell and back down, slowly inching towards the bay's entrance. We are literally just bobbing out here, not making our course, doing like 2 knots. We're so close, but just trying to get through the channel into the bay is proving to be very tricky. Joys of an inner force day. Through, it's just the knots on the We planned to sail through the entrance, but we were counting on having wind to get us through it. At this point, the winds continued to ease, threatening to completely glass out. We're now drifting at the entrance, and once again, sighting breaking waves on the reef, we look for options to get us moving. Do you want more fuel? Of course, as we're coming through the entrance, the wind has completely died off. We've had to get the dinghy off the bow so we can see if we can get in through this channel. Mum's gonna kill you.
Huh?
Your mum's gonna kill you.
Sorry, Mum. Trust me,
And she's gonna kill me too.
this is better than the alternative, Mum. For those who are worried about safety, we are trying. I'm clipped onto the outboard, tethered to the tender. Don't tell me that's the wrong thing to do, I don't know. And I've got a PLB and a handheld radio. And I'm the only one in the boat with an engine. Yeah. Anyway.
So we've actually got some mates on a boat who are anchored in here already, and then been kind enough to bring out their mothership, and I'm pretty sure they're going to come meet us. So we will have a little safety vessel as well shortly. I can see them coming up on the horizon. This situation is precisely one of the reasons we wanted a 15 horsepower outboard and a sturdy tender. So we're certainly grateful this is working to get us out of a sticky situation. But when Hagar approaches and offers us a tow, we of course take them up on the offer.
Morning!
Thanks guys! These guys are our new cruising buddies, Tor and Jackie aboard Hagar, a hulk of a vessel that we are incredibly grateful for. Absolute legends.
But it's saying Hagar's handling this really well. I don't know if the Karma would be able to return the favour. As we surf down one wave, she's surfing down another. We're pulling, tossing, turning. It's quite horrible, to be honest.
It's 3 nautical miles from the entrance in the reef to the anchorage, which has taken us about an hour. Once close to shore and now well within the protection of the reef, we drop the tow rope. Thanks guys!
I'll get back in the tugboat, eh?
Yeah. And Nakama's personal tugboat guided us the last few meters to a perfect spot of sand for us to finally drop anchor 21 hours after we anticipated, and 50 hellish nautical miles further south than we had planned. Oh my gosh, relief. Anchor is down. We're safe and sound. It's either food time or bedtime. Maybe food first, then bed.
Rattled, eh?
I think this could be perhaps the messiest the boat has ever been after a sail. I didn't even realise that we had this much. It's crazy.
Well guys, pretty hectic episode there. That definitely to date has to be the hardest and probably most hardcore time we've ever had while sailing, and that we've ever tried to capture for you guys. Looking back on it, when we checked the observations, I think we didn't realise there was a 4 metre forecasted swell. I think that sort of caught up as we were out there. But even the forecasted swell, we checked the observations and it was about 6 metres. So while that won't show up on the camera, that's what we were experiencing out there. I think we actually captured more than we thought we initially did after that sail, but a lot of it happened at night, and
a lot around dusk.
Around dusk,
and
yeah.
Getting dark. It was one of those sails that was hard to pick up the camera, for sure.
As soon as the autopilot went, at that stage, one of us, that means we were basically, one of us had to be on the helm at any one time, and then the other person was running around like full crazy, trying to either fix the autopilot or, you know, check the engine. The jerry cans was a big thing, big wake-up call. They were repetitively trying to go swimming. We didn't lose any, thank God. We would have felt terrible if we'd donated 20 litres of diesel to the ocean.
At one point though, both of us were on the leeward side with our legs completely submerged in water, both like hanging onto a jerry can.
Yeah.
This was definitely like a wake-up call for what we are in for with the West Coast. This was, you know, the first sort of like beating that we have had, and a huge wake-up call as to what we need to prepare for from now on.
This all started thinking we were day hopping down the reef. We thought we were pretty much just going to motor down the reef. It's only blowing like 10 knots on the nose today, so we're making a dash for it. Just popping our way down the Ningaloo Reef. Yeah, I guess that's getting caught out in unforecasted conditions, but in a stretch of coastline that is super unforgiving. Plenty of books written about sailors that have come to their demise along this coastline. More on that actually in some episodes to come, but I think strangely enough, and it was probably potentially because we were so rattled by the experience, but one of the most outstanding events that occurred that night, I think, would be for myself when the anchor dislodged. We probably didn't discuss it in the footage because we were probably, yeah, like I said, rattled from it. But when the anchor initially came out, it was smashing into the bow as we were beating into it, and like sinking feeling of like there's going to be a massive hole in our hull any second now. Like it was full on. So yeah, I didn't tether on, I didn't clip in, I was wearing black trackies and a black hoodie, and I ran forward to the bow.
So sketchy.
To dive on the chain. But the chain had started paying out. Like our old windlass just could not hold on to the anchor and the chain in that swell once its lashings had come undone. So I like tried to re-secure the chain, and then I remember just looking up and seeing this green wave, and they come in sets, and just thinking, oh, we're going underwater here, and quickly like putting the chain in place. And then I've never held on to anything so hard in my life, like no life jacket, no tether, no PLB, personal EPIRB, on nothing, because it was just like, it was already an emergency of the anchor about to bash a hole through our hull. So freaky. But I remember getting dipped in the first wave and holding on like I've never held on to anything before in my life, being completely and fully submerged underwater through this wave, and then popping back up. And then the thing with sets is then there was the next wave, and then the third wave that I went underwater again holding onto the pulpit of Nakama was less severe. But yeah, the first two waves were pretty hardcore, and I looked back at Soph. Soph had seen me go underwater.
It was pretty
Soph's
terrifying.
face when I looked back in the Dodger, like, she was just like, would have seen me go under a wave and not know if I was still holding on. It was psycho.
Yeah, this was a massive learning curve for us.
I mean, we always tether on and stuff when we know we're going forward. That's not something like, I actually don't want to hear any crap in the things being like,
we always
this was
definitely
a full emergency.
Yeah, this felt like everything was quite chaotic and quite frantic, and everything was sort of like, it was one after the other. So we were just paying attention to one thing, and then something else would happen, and then we're running over to that to try and fix that up. And it's just like, it was one of those sails, everything sort of felt like it did go wrong. But I hope we managed to capture the chaos and franticness of this sail. But obviously, like, yeah, to be honest, like, we felt like we struggled to pick up the camera. We did.
Obviously,
we struggled
one
to
of us
pick
was
up the
holding,
camera.
yeah. But we still wanted to come on at the end here and just
touch on a few other things that were interesting. And for those of you that are still here and haven't tuned out and want to hear this extra detail, like when we were coming into that reef pass, when we finally arrived and after just the hecticest night of 6 meter swell on the nose, 30 knots at least on the nose, and then it just glassed out and we were left bobbing, just slowly getting pushed by these 6 meter waves towards the reef. We've never got the dinghy off the roof so fast before, ever.
We didn't know when the wind was going to come back in, so we were just like, we need to get the dinghy off. We need to at least have Nakama with momentum in some direction.
My arms were hurting like they've never hurt in anything I've done before, holding on to Nakama and using the tender. We were so grateful that Tor and Jackie on Hagar, we had radioed them on approach and basically told them our situation, said we hadn't slept in a very long time, we had no autopilot, no engine, and we were going to sail through the passage. So they were watching us on AIS.
They were on standby, for sure.
So when they saw us drifting in the entrance to this reef lagoon, they just legends updanked her and came out, and it was a pretty painful experience, to be honest, on my arms, holding the boat and tendering in. But in one ways, we never wanted to have that emergency, but it's funny because in our considerations for not only getting that tender, but for getting an outboard of that size, was in the back of our mind was ever in an emergency situation. I more thought this could have been in the Kimberley with the tides. We wanted to know that our tender could pull our vessel, and we were so eternally grateful that we had that available to us. And that was the right decision to have an outboard capable of pushing our vessel.
Yeah, it put it to the test. As well as because we have to deflate the tender to get onto our foredeck because it doesn't fit between our rigging otherwise. So our tender was actually deflated.
When I was in the water
Simon was in the water pushing Nakama along. Which is also amazing because that was another thing. We wanted for the Kimberley with the crocodiles, we wanted a tender that we knew if a tube did get bitten by a croc,
we'd still get back.
We'd still be able to go on the water and zoom out of that situation. And
it was good to know.
Proved that it worked.
I had to go between Nakama and Hagar to secure our tow line. And it was big seas, it still, maybe it wasn't 6 meters anymore, it was still 4 to 5 meters.
But it was still in the ocean.
I was like, oh no, the tubes are deflated. But the tender still handled fine. The only thing I noticed is the steering was a little bit, how's it going? But as far as we did get questions in the Kimberley, aren't you worried, what if a croc chews your tender? And we're like, no, the Hypalon itself is relatively buoyant, I believe. It felt that way. And while there was a little bit of air in it, obviously, when I was using it here, it was good to know that if you ever got in trouble or whatever, you'd still be able to get back to your mothership in order to put some repair patches on and stuff. So that scratched a little curiosity for us. Again, a curiosity I never wanted to scratch, but hopefully it will be interesting information for some of you guys.
Yeah.
And we learned our lesson by getting our ass kicked.
Yeah. I think next time we'll head out, we just need to be prepared for anything, especially because we know that we're going to be now beating into these southerly winds.
Yeah.
So prepare for the worst, always.
Yeah.
And also prepare food, because we didn't eat this whole entire time from leaving Tantabiddi Bay
that is a key
to Coral Bay,
yeah.
which was I think all up at 50 plus 30, 50, 60, 70, 80 miles, which took us over 24 hours.
36 hours.
30 something hours, which is super slow. We didn't eat that whole entire time because it was just chaotic, and we couldn't go down and make food. Normally we have no issue with making food underway. We actually quite enjoy it, but with this trip it was really hard to, and we didn't eat food, so also next time we're going to prepare some food.
Yeah, I can't remember how many tacks we did, but our track down the coastline looks like Bart Simpson's head. And for those of you that do the Round the Sticks Wednesday racing or something like that, you're like, whatever, but it's remembering no food, no sleep, double-handed, but also not really even double, so restricted because one of you was on the tiller the whole time, which meant the sleep started getting progressively worse and worse. Actually, a story that I'll say is funny. It's kind of dodgy but funny at the same time, but I guess we're coming clean about all our mistakes here. I don't even know if it was a mistake, but when I woke up and Soph was comfortably just steering the boat, fully asleep.
I was
and you were
consciously asleep.
Yeah. And we got to the point of being so tired because not just the watches, normally you can pull an all-nighter if you have to, but the amount of physical and stress energy that was going into this sail when everything was going wrong was insane. And then we got to the point that we were so tired, we'd be sailing along, one person would be steering, you'd kind of be like, I'm about to fall asleep, and tap the other person, and we like grab the tiller, and then you'd just like pass out. Hey, that was. And then by this time,
it was like by far our worst night we've ever had aboard Nakama. Normally we can manage sleeping and watches, but there was no watch system. It was just like, we just need to get through this night.
Full survival mode.
We hope you enjoyed this video and
tune in next week.
Can take something away from it perhaps.
Tune in next week. We'll see. This will be one of them times where it's like boat jobs in remote places. We're in the middle of nowhere and we got a busted up and broken boat, and we've got to get ourselves out of this situation. Clearly we're not dead, but it should be a good watch, and have a squiz.
If you enjoyed the video and haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps us out. As well as thank you to all our Patreon crew for being a part of this amazing community. We couldn't do it without you, so thanks to all those guys over there. And thanks, guys.
See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
If you're lucky.
Thanks for watching.
On the see you next week if you're lucky thing, and when a while ago we didn't post a video for a while, and we were like, sorry, everything's really hectic at the moment. This is kind of, this shows maybe we get some empathy as to why sometimes it's hard for us to get our videos out.
Also, I know people appreciate getting a glimpse of Chili,
She's
so
alive. She made it through as well.
She's also okay and alive, although she doesn't look very...
She's just been woken up from a nap.
Yeah, she was just sleeping. Anyway, alright.
Crazy cat owners. And look at our cat!
Alright, bye guys.
Also, have you seen our cat? This one.